Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive part of your ACCA Business and Technology exam, Individual and Group Behavior. And look, understanding this stuff isn't just about passing a test, right? It is absolutely essential for actual organizational success. So let's jump right in and make these concepts super easy to digest.
Here's our game plan. We're going to start small with individuals and role theory, then scale up to groups versus teams, dig into some famous frameworks from Belbin and Tuckman, look at team effectiveness, and wrap it all up with a rapid-fire revision summary. Okay, Section 1, Individuals and Role Theory. Let's zoom right in on the solo employee. So, what exactly is individual behavior? Well, simply put, it's just how an employee acts on a day-to-day basis. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's actually this really complex mix of who that person is internally, rubbing up against the specific environment they're placed in at work. For your exam, you've got to remember that an individual's performance is shaped by four main factors. It basically comes down to their motivation levels, how they perceive the work environment, their personal attitudes, and of course, their unique personality traits. Honestly, if you tweak just one of these things, you can completely change someone's entire output. Which brings us to role theory. This is the idea that we all kind of put on different hats at work. Basically, people adapt their behavior to match the expectations that the organization places on them for their specific job. You essentially act how they expect you to act. But roles can definitely get messy. Keep an eye out for challenges like role ambiguity. That's when a new hire is just totally lost on what their responsibilities actually are. Or role conflict, like imagine having to formally discipline your best work friend. Yikes. You also have role incompatibility, where outside expectations clash with the job, and your role set, which is basically your whole network of support people at work. All right, moving on to Section 2. What happens when we put all these individuals together in one room? You absolutely need to know the difference between a group and a team. A group might just be people working on related tasks, maybe formed formally by management or informally through shared interests. But they mostly have individual accountability and really limited synergy. A team, though, that's where the magic happens. Teams share common goals, they have shared accountability, and they create high synergy. That means their combined collaborative output is way bigger than just adding up their individual efforts. So how do we actually build one of those high synergy teams? For Section 3, we look to Dr. Meredith Belbin. Belbin figured out that there are 9 distinct roles needed for a highly successful team. Ready? You've got the plant, who creatively solves problems, the resource investigator for networking, and the coordinator who naturally leads. Then there's the driven shaper pushing everyone forward, the logical monitor evaluator, and the team worker who keeps the peace. Finally, you have the practical implementer doing the actual work, the completer finisher polishing the details, and the specialist bringing rare expert knowledge. Get a balanced mix of these roles, and boom, massive synergy. Once your team is built, they're going to evolve over time. That brings us to Section 4, Bruce Tuckman's sequential framework. Tuckman showed us that teams don't just work perfectly on day one, they go through stages. First is forming. Everyone's polite but kind of uncertain. Then comes storming. That's where personalities clash and power struggles happen. If they survive that, they hit norming, where they find consensus and set clear rules. That paves the way for performing, a stage of super high trust and maximum effectiveness. And finally, adjourning, when the job is done and the team proudly disbands. Section 5. So, how do managers actually know if a team has reached that peak performing stage? Well, we evaluate them by just looking at their daily reality. We look at how well they're communicating, how efficiently they solve complex problems, and at the end of the day, whether they're actually hitting the organization's strategic objectives. It's honestly night and day. Effective teams win because they have open communication, shared goals, and this deep mutual trust. Even when they argue, it's managed constructively. Ineffective teams fail because of secretive communication, totally unclear objectives, and a toxic climate where conflict is either swept under the rug or just straight up destructive. All right, Section 6, let's finish up with our rapid-fire cheat sheet so you are 100% ready for this exam. Mental screenshot time. Here's your summary. Individual behavior is how employees think and act. Role theory is acting based on what the company expects. Belbin gives us the 9 team roles for effectiveness. Tuckman is your team evolution, forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And finally, teams require high synergy, shared goals, and unwavering trust. Lock those in. So, I'll leave you with this to think about. Which of Belbin's 9 roles do you naturally play in your own ACCA study group? And how are you going to use Tuckman's stages to guarantee you pass this exam? Knowing your own team role is literally the first step to mastering organizational behavior in the real world. You've got this.